Hello, and welcome back to our Epsteinland series. Today we are doing episode 6, the accountability platform. 5 episodes ago, I asked you a question. Who is in the Epstein class? How did they get there? What rules do they live by? And what would it actually take to make the law apply to them the way it applies to the rest of us? We have spent 5 episodes answering the first 4 questions. This episode is about the last one. I want to be direct about something before we begin. Everything else we care about, healthcare, climate, wages, housing, education, is downstream of this. As long as the Epstein class operating system is running, every reform is temporary. Every law we pass has a price tag, and they can afford it. Every regulation gets watered down, captured, or reversed. No lasting progress on anything that matters is possible until we rewrite this code first. And can I say, while we're at it, can we make shame a thing again? This is not a fantasy. It is a plan. Fix the machine. Then the policy debates become real, and we can make the country better for all of us, not for just the few. So here is what breaking the machine actually looks like. 5 concrete planks, not a wish list, a historically grounded, politically and legally achievable accountability agenda for 2026. Each plank addresses one layer of the operating system we have spent 5 episodes describing. Taken together, they form the precondition for everything else. Plank 1, reverse Citizens United. Support a constitutional amendment clarifying that regulated election spending is not pure speech, that corporations are not people, and money is not the same as a vote. Pair that with a public matching system for small donors so that a $50 donation from a nurse in Pittsburgh is amplified to match, in some measure, what a billionaire's check buys. Real-time disclosure requirements for dark money. All PACs and their feeders upstream, their financials are public, accessible by us, by journalists, and by enforcing agencies. Strict foreign spending bans. The auction has to end. Democracy means every voice counts, not every dollar, and every dollar is traceable and accountable. Plank 2, the Honest Government Act. Redefine bribery and graft so that the legal architecture we described in episode 4, the post-McDonnell, post-Snyder gift and grift economy, is recognized for what it is, legalized corruption. Luxury travel, loans, influence peddling, insider trading, and prediction market bets tied to policy outcomes all become criminal with penalties severe enough to hurt financially, as well as jail time. Lifetime revolving door bans for senior officials, full financial disclosure with real penalties for all federal judges, including Supreme Court justices. The Clarence Thomas problem is not just a personal failing. It is the inevitable result of Epstein class impunity. Let's end it. Plank 3, Financial Accountability Act 2.0. Automatic investigations for systemic risk events. Personal clawbacks from individuals, not just corporations. Criminal liability and industry bans for reckless executives. Reinstate functional Glass-Steagall separations. Cap leverage at too big to fail institutions. Mandate individual, not just corporate, responsibility. Revive the prosecution standard that puts savings and loan executives and Enron's leadership behind bars. Yes, because it's punitive, but because it's also a deterrent. Because the knowledge that the law applies to you changes how you behave. The 2008 crash was not an act of God. It was a perfectly foreseeable policy failure, and many foresaw it and complained about it. And the absence of accountability after 2008 was a policy choice. Let's reverse that. Or the Neo-Brandeisian Trust Act. Justice Louis Brandeis warned a century ago, we can have democracy in this country, or we can have great wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, but we cannot have both. Scale up Lena Khan-style FTC enforcement with the resources it actually needs. Lower merger prohibition thresholds. Establish explicit tests for democracy harms from economic concentration, not just consumer welfare in the narrow Friedmanite sense, but the broader question of what concentrated power does to the political system itself. Break up political money monopolies, amplify small donors, make competition real again. Plank 5, value creation and inheritance reform. A Mazzucato-inspired levy on pure financial extraction, high-frequency trading, debt-fueled buyouts, the instruments of value capture rather than value creation, directed into public research and public development, redirecting bailout capitalism's captured gains into shared investment. Pair this with aggressive estate tax reform. As Theodore Roosevelt articulated in 1906, fortunes transmitted to the next generation is neither good for the inheritor nor the country. We rebelled against an ossified aristocracy, and we are now living under one again. Dynasties built on the public commons owe something to the public commons. That is not radical. Adam Smith, Jefferson, Lincoln all agreed on this. It is our way to equality of opportunity. The question for 2026. Every race in 2026 can be framed around a single question. Not tax rates, not border policy, not the culture war topics designed to divide us from each other while the Epstein class operates undisturbed above the fray. The question, are we willing to break Epsteinland? Does the law apply to the powerful or only to the rest of us? The question cuts across party lines. It resonates with the Trump voter whose town lost its factory and got an opioid epidemic instead. It resonates with the progressive exhausted by the gap between what politicians promise and what they deliver. It resonates with the conservative who actually believes in equal treatment under the law. Our neighbors are not our enemies. They are not the villains. Epsteinland is. Now I want to address the political strategy directly because I have heard the objection and maybe you have too. This is too radical. You'll lose the center. You need to appeal to moderate voters. Stop chasing that median voter. That voter is a myth. Research by G. Elliott Morris, Rachel Bitecofer, and Anat Shenker-Osorio on polarized electorates consistently shows the same thing. Most voters are already sorted into camps. The decisive variable in 2026 is not persuasion of mythical centrists, it is motivation, turnout, whether people who are already angry at the system believe it is worth showing up to change it. The voters who will decide 2026 and 2028 are the people who stayed home last time. Not because they didn't care, because no one gave them a reason to believe that showing up would matter. Give them a reason. Jonah Berger's research on social influence confirms what we have been saying since episode 3. The messages that get shared, remembered, and acted on are not the policy briefs. They are the ones that trigger genuine moral emotion. Anger at injustice, pride in doing right, shame at betrayal. Link the local pain to the national architecture, the hospital that closed, private equity extraction, housing costs, the town that lost its factory, trade policy written by and for the Epstein class, the school underfunded while billionaires pay lower effective tax rates than teachers. Not an accident, a design. The 5 planks of this platform connect every local grievance to the operating system that produced it. That is not divisive messaging. That is accurate messaging. And accuracy, delivered with moral clarity, builds trust that technocratic management never will. I want to close this series where Franklin Roosevelt closed his 1936 campaign. Speaking at Madison Square Garden, FDR named his enemies plainly: business and financial monopoly, reckless banking, class antagonism, war profiteering, what his cousin Theodore had called the malefactors of great wealth. And then he said something that has echoed across 80 years of American politics. They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred. That is not anger, that is clarity. The clarity of someone who knows exactly who he is fighting for and exactly who he is fighting against. The clarity that says, if the Epstein class hates this agenda, it is a signal that the agenda is correct. The Epstein class will call this agenda radical. They will say it is dangerous to business, to innovation, to freedom. They said that about Theodore Roosevelt. They said it about Franklin Roosevelt. They said it about Lina Khan. They were right. It is dangerous to their rule. Welcome their hatred. Let me tell you why I made this series. I spent my career as an ICU physician and hospice physician in Pittsburgh. I watched people die from diseases they couldn't afford to treat. I watched families bankrupted by medical bills while the insurance corporations posted record profits. I watched a healthcare system that could have been organized around human need, organized instead around extraction. And I kept asking the same question, why? Not why in some abstract political sense. Why specifically is this the choice we made? Who benefits? Who decided? The series is my answer to that question. 6 episodes, 1 argument. The operating system is the problem. The Epstein class runs the operating system. And we, all of us, across the lines they use to divide us, are the ones bearing the cost. We have laid it all out. Let's hope it is useful. Justice Louis Brandeis said it a century ago. We may have democracy, or we may have wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, but we cannot have both. This is not a partisan statement. It is a mathematical one. Power concentrates unless something counteracts it. The something that counteracts it is democratic accountability, the proposition that the law applies to everyone, that the government works for the nation, that wealth is permitted only insofar as it benefits the community that made it possible. That proposition is older than the progressive movement. It is older than the New Deal. It is in the bones of the American creed. And it is time to say it again, loudly, without apology, and with the moral confidence it deserves. Theodore Roosevelt said it at Osawatomie in 1910. Franklin Roosevelt said it at Madison Square Garden in 1936. Lena Khan said it in every merger case she filed. The law applies to you. The law applies to everyone. Before we argue about the size of government, we have to decide who it serves. Before we debate policy details, we have to dismantle the machine that converts every policy into another elite loophole. The law must bind the Epstein class as it binds the rest of us. We must make our constitutional rights protect us all equally. Before I sign off, I want to make the ask concrete. Share this series. People in your life who are angry at the system, who know something is wrong but have been handed the wrong explanations, the wrong villains, deserve the right one. Send your representatives the letter. It is linked below. Download it, edit it, make it your own. The 5-plank platform is there in full. Change it, do whatever you like with it. Tell them, this is what accountability first looks like. This is what 2026 should be about. And then show up. Because the most powerful thing the Epstein class needs from you is your absence, your despair, your conviction that nothing will change. Prove them wrong. I'm a retired physician. I've spent 30 years watching what concentrated power does to human bodies and our communities. I made this series because I believe the diagnosis is the first step to the cure. The cure exists. The historical precedents exist. The tools exist. The legal authority exists. What it requires, what it has always required, is our collective will. I'm Chris Hughes, and thank you for watching Epsteinland.